back to the coffee shop, everybody. It's your boys, Zach and Kevin, here for another episode. I say it every time. Episode of Coffee Shop Sports here. How you doing on this Thursday morning, Kev?
Dude, I'm doing phenomenal, man. Absolutely exhausted. This is an early morning in the coffee shop. Less than ideal for me. You know me. I'm a big like sleep till
Late
11
riser.
or noon guy, but we're in this, man. We're here, so we're making the most of it.
I love it, man. Well, I'm happy to be here. I feel like 9 a.m. is not that early of a rise for me, but it can get rough from time to time. So I feel you.
You're exposing me, man. That is definitely. It doesn't sound that early when you say it like that.
No, it does not. Um, but you know the best part about it's November 2nd here as we're recording. You're gonna be listening to this on November 3rd, but that means it's a little chillier outside. Not really in LA. It's been like 80 the last 3 days. But my office here in the morning is no longer balls hot. So I don't have to have a fan on. I can just enjoy my day, our podcast without having to like sweat my pits off. And I imagine you're feeling the same way.
Dude, it's actually perfect, man. You've been in the studio that I use for the podcast,
Your
and
studio is brutal.
there's no weather insulation whatsoever. So whatever the elements are outside is what this room feels like. So I'm actually chilly too. I got the North Face on, so you already know I'm in the same boat as you, brother. It's nice. We need to enjoy this like 1 month period of time before it's unbearably cold in these environments, and then it's just gonna be. You're gonna see me with a winter hat and mittens, and I'm gonna have hand warmers, and you're gonna see my breath.
We live in the valley. It's never unbearably cold. I can't get on that train. For me, unbearably cold doesn't happen in LA unless you're by the ocean.
I've
Like if you're by
softened.
the ocean, that's bone chilling. But out
Yeah,
here, I'm like pants and a hoodie tops. Like
no,
you ain't never gonna see me with gloves on in the city of Los Angeles.
I've
That's never gonna
softened,
happen.
brother. I used to say that
Yeah,
too. I've been here
you're
for 5 years,
from
man.
Buffalo, man.
I know
You
I'm
can't.
weak.
You
I,
got
I,
you
do-
know
I
your blood
bring shame
got
to
the
my
cold in
people.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's honestly.
I really do.
Well, staying on brand here, our first sip to the day is not sports related, but
That's
it's an
right.
important question for
It
this time
is.
of the year, and it's actually come up in my household in the last couple of days.
Oh, thank
So
God,
I'm
because
happy to
I
talk
need
about it.
answers. I really need answers, Zach. I'm very confused.
So November 1st, Mariah Carey's breaking out the ice. You can hear her singing the Christmas music. Halloween's over. Does November 1st start the Christmas season for you or not?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you posed it to me first. So if we're on differing sides, I can, make a case. I can establish my footing before you come in with a haymaker. I'm gonna go with no. Personally, I'm very much not a fan. I feel like this is a newer trend. This whole the minute Halloween ends, Christmas starts. I don't like it. I hear it. It's everywhere. It's all over. The podcasts I listen to. They were playing Jingle Bells on the Fantasy Footballer, Zach. Yeah, it's a little early for me, man. I feel like Christmas season starts when Thanksgiving ends, and I feel like that's always been the case. And I brought it up with Brian McFadden this morning at a meeting, and he said, "This is capitalism at its finest." And I tend to agree with Brian. I think people are just trying to the earlier you can get people to start thinking about the buying mindset, the better for capitalism. So I'm inclined to say personally for myself, and I'd like to see this trend moving forward, but I'd like to see us stronger than that. We're absolutely undercutting the greatness of Thanksgiving. We're undercutting the greatness of fall. We're skipping right to winter, man. I can't have it personally.
I'm on board with you on this one.
Let's go. Let's
I
go.
I've no matter what really the holiday is, I never like celebrating it more than 30 to 31 days out. Like a month before is fine with me.
Yeah.
And I don't mind really people celebrating super early. Early November, I'm fine if people want to start getting the Christmas lights up, get the ball rolling. It's cool with me. It's not really my cup of tea, but I'm not going to fault someone for wanting to get in the Christmas spirit. But what does piss me off is when I'm on December 10th, I'm like, okay, let me go buy some Christmas decorations, and the stores are empty. When there's nothing there, and that's happened to me here more than anything else. I'll go, and I'm like, oh, let's get some ornaments or Christmas decorations, and I go to Target, and it's bone dry. This is
Yeah.
December 10th, and they're like, oh, well, we started selling this stuff October. So like there's nothing left now. I don't want to go buy Christmas decorations in October. I don't want to do it. And I hate that it's out there. I hate walking by a store shelf on October 30th and seeing a little Santa Claus. I'm like, get this out of my face. It's not that time.
Dude, I agree. I really agree. And I'm
But
big on like not yucking others' yums, but like it's
I
too
agree.
soon.
It's like small caveat. I don't mind if you want to start listening to some Christmas music on November 1st. Get in the mood. That's cool. You're not infringing on anybody else here. You're just listening to your music. Maybe you're throwing up lights inside, bringing the stuff out from the shed, whatever. You're prepping. You're getting for it. But I also still like Thanksgiving,
Me
and
too.
I'm always a big like I don't celebrate holidays for any I don't feel like I celebrate any holiday for like the reason the holiday exists. You know, like I'm not here for Christmas for religious reasons. I'm not here
Yeah.
for Easter for religious reasons.
Yeah.
But I got eggs and I
Yeah.
got Christmas presents. And
Right.
that's the same thing with Thanksgiving. I do not care how Thanksgiving came to be about. I'm making my pumpkin pie, I'm eating my turkey, and I'm hanging out with my and Thanksgiving football. That is the
Yeah.
holiday.
It's the best part. 100%. Yeah.
So I'm
So
not skipping it.
we're on lockstep. And I appreciate that, man, because you know, I feel like when we're united, we're stronger. But this just is just tough because it's like I do see the value because Christmas is awesome and it makes a lot of people really happy.
My
Um,
favorite holiday,
it's a great holiday. It's
bar
my favorite
none.
holiday. Look, it's this is gonna sound weird, but like I don't know. Do you get that weird, that little melancholic feeling around holiday times? Like, does it bring a little bit of melancholy for you? It does for me.
It does sometimes. I mean, I do miss being with my family for a lot of it.
Yeah,
Luckily, I am able to see my family so much that
that's
it
nice.
eases it. And we'll be going out for Christmas this year,
Love
back
that.
to see them, and with my girlfriend's family for Thanksgiving. So I get my fair share. And by the end of the week, not so much. But sometimes, yeah, it's you're
Yeah,
always gonna miss that like first couple years of a kid in Christmas.
yeah.
It's always
It's
gonna feel
it's
like that.
yeah. You get that little bit of feeling, but you know, it's still. I mean, the worst Christmas is better than most holidays, honestly. So, I think that about wraps up our conversation. I'm glad we're in lockstep. I'm gonna want to hear from our listeners and from the people who are subscribing to our YouTube channel what they think and if we're crazy. I personally think I'm hoping we're in the majority. I'm hoping we're in the majority here, but I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of chatter that it's Christmas season and it's a
People
little.
like starting in November 1st, and like I said, I'm a little torn on it. But give us a date. When do you start celebrating Christmas? For me, it's a month before. Right after Thanksgiving is fine. After
Yeah,
Black Friday, I think I'm thinking of Christmas on Black Friday
yeah,
easily.
yeah.
So like,
You have
bam,
to,
I'm
right?
in. I'm
Yeah,
ready.
cheap
Yeah,
presents.
I'm ready to
I
go. I'm in for
think
that.
the way that people have started treating Halloween as this signifier to end, the pre-Christmas times, I think of Thanksgiving as that day.
I'm with
I
it.
think,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I do
that's
too.
my philosophy.
Well, let's wrap this up. We got some analysis to get to here, everybody. It's mid season. We're in the thick of things. You're climbing out of a rut in your leagues. If you're like me, if you're like Kevin, you're sitting on the top of the tables thinking about playoffs. Not in a league together, of course, not yet.
Not yet. Travesty, actual travesty.
But regardless of where you are, you got moves to make. You're either prepping for a playoff run, you're trying to get into that playoff run. Maybe you're dealing with some serious injuries. So we've got a little segment coming ahead that we're going to talk about maybe some trends that we're seeing. Um, Players who are on a run that maybe are gonna burn the pot a little here soon, or maybe some fresh brews that are gonna keep on going. And I
Love
don't
that.
want to hear you. I want to hear your thoughts on these guys. This is a little trending and ending. So
Let's
these are
go.
some players that have had either a serious good spell or a serious bad spell. And I want you to tell me whether or not you think they are going to continue trending or if it's ending. And let's start off with your boy Jameer Gibbs of the Lion. He's
Yeah.
been the RB1 over the last 2 weeks, I believe. Been just on a tear with David Montgomery out. The Lions are clearly in the playoff picture. What are your thoughts on Jameer Gibbs? Can he keep this up?
Yeah, man, this hurts me to have to start with this because I love Jameer Gibbs. And I said, if you recall on our Trade 4 episode, go buy Jameer Gibbs now. I didn't forecast the Montgomery injury. So I kind of assumed that we would just see this utilization uptick naturally. Alas, that wasn't to be. So this uptick is great and it's welcome. And it's even, I'd say, borderline forecasted or predicted. but the circumstances are kind of clouding it a little bit for me. I don't think that I feel strongly enough about Montgomery's talent that I will say ending outright, but I don't feel confident enough in the Lions brass to continue this utilization to say trending. It hurts. I'm kind of in limbo here. If I was leaning, like I talk a lot about like, drums or flats, right? And in a lot of the debates, right, Zach, you and I are very opinionated people. In a lot of the debates, I have a very firm camp. I'm minimum 70% in this camp for these reasons. Drums and flats, I'm 50.1 to 49.9, and I'm in favor of flats. I'll need your answer on that in a second. But, sir, that is my case with Jahmyr Gibbs, and I will say the trending is the heavier one just because the talent is just so apparent. He just oozes with talent. We saw it on prime time the other night. That touchdown run was just a thing of beauty. And I had a parlay on his receptions. So every carry he got, I was like, dude, he's just gonna keep getting too close to the end zone to get another catch. And he did end up catching, but he made me sweat it out because of how many freaking yards he gets every time he touches the ball. He's an incredible football player.
Yeah, he's been one of my favorite prop bets the last 2 weeks because his receiving yards line was so low. I mean, he's a 2 catch, you're hitting 40 yards type of guy.
Yeah.
I'm leaning with you. I do think he's trending. Like I want Jahmyr Gibbs on my team right now. I want David Montgomery on my team right now. I went out last night, made a trade for him, as you know. Sent Calvin Ridley and Dameon Pierce for him. Hurt to lose Calvin Ridley because I love him so much. But
You did the right thing.
I do think both of these backs are going to be involved. In an absolute blowout game, we saw Craig Reynolds get 13 carries, almost 80 yards, another catch, and that's with Jahmyr Gibbs' massive game. Obviously, they're probably not going to be running for 200 yards every single game.
That was crazy.
They have the second easiest schedule adjusted strength of schedule for the rest of the season. After their bye, they get the Chargers, who are 20th against the run, and then Chicago, Green Bay, Chicago, Denver again. The only matchup in there being bad is New Orleans in week 13. Those are all bottom 4 rush defenses. I think the Lions are going to be able to win a lot of these games, and I think both of these backs are going to be heavily involved. I think it is ending that either of these guys are going to be getting 30 carries. I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree.
I think that ship has sailed for David Montgomery that we saw at the beginning of the season because you can't put the cat in the bag with Jahmyr Gibbs. He's too talented.
Yeah.
The coaching staff obviously drafted him to see this, and he's showing them exactly what they wanted. I do think he'll keep a lock on the receiving game. I think he's a lock for at least 10 touches a game. I imagine they'll get him up to the 15 to 20 mark. But I think David Montgomery is the same way. I think the number one back part of Jahmyr Gibbs will be ending, and we'll bring that up a little later on another segment. But I'm not panicking. I'm not moving because David Montgomery is going to be back.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. That is exactly why I can't say for sure definitively any more than 50.1% that it's a trend because we saw what Monty is. I mean, the same way, there's a lot of vitriol towards the Lions coaching staff about their utilization of Gibbs through the early part of the season. And it's but you can't knock him though. It worked. Montgomery was an animal and he still will be. He will come back and be great because he is great. He's just different than Gibbs. He's more of a battering ram.
I'm happy to see you there because I remember at the beginning of the season you were not in on David Montgomery's talent, and I
as much. I drafted him in a dyno. I like him.
You said he was trash, but
I don't think so. That's cat. But no, but I was lower.
On the Bears, he was pretty trash. But give him a good offensive line, and he's very useful. Well, let's move on to the next one. I'm going to bounce to a wide receiver here because we have a couple running backs on this list.
Sweet.
And let's go with Indianapolis Colts new rookie star Josh Downs. Also been on a bit of a tear lately. 3 straight games with at least 10 fantasy points. Kind of a PPR guy. 1 touchdown in that span. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Josh Downs?
I think I want you to kick this one off, man. This is your guy. You've been talking about Downs all season.
I do love Josh Downs. His reception perception profile coming out of college was stellar. He's just a natural separator. 5'9", 171. He's a smaller guy, a bit of a burner. Kind of not stuck, but slotted into that slot role, if not a downfield receiver. And man, he's just been so good. Everything we've seen from him on the year, his reception perception profile has held up. He's not just like a pop gun slot type of guy. He's running real routes. He's running them good. The Colts needed someone outside of Michael Pittman. They had no one else there. Alec Pierce is a good deep threat, but he's not going to be a number 2. And I think Josh Downs is a perfect fit for that role. If Anthony Richardson was coming back, I would be a little more hesitant just because they don't pass the ball as much with Richardson. Still super high pace of play. But he was liking to throw the ball down the field a little more than we've seen of Gardner Minshew. I think with Minshew, Josh Downs will continue to be on at least a usable tear. I don't think he's going to get, 4 games of the last weeks. He's had at least 10 fantasy points. I think he'll calm down a little. Obviously, you have 2 touchdowns in those 4 games. He doesn't necessarily profile as the biggest touchdown threat. There is something to be said with good route runners in the end zone of just being able to create separation. But him and Gardner have just shown some chemistry. You got to be aware that his bye is coming up in week 11, so you're going to miss him a week there. But he just seems to be a lock for 5 to 10 targets a game. They're throwing the ball just a ton. Their pace of play is insane. So there's enough to go around, and there's no one else that's going to take over for him. Like outside of Michael Pittman, Josh Downs is the only one there that's a viable receiver. So he's going to get his games. He's going to have his 5 for 35 games where you're going to be a little disappointed, but he's kind of proven to almost be matchup proof. I like it. I think he's a great wide receiver 3. I'm not really pushing him any higher than that, but I do think he's a really good wide receiver 3, bye-week fill-in, flex player the rest of the season.
I think that you are so spot on, my good sir. I will just throw in, that yes, 3 out of the next 4 matchups on Sleeper are green colored matchups. We have Patriots, Bucks, and Titans after this 1 week against Carolina, which personally I'm not really afraid of Carolina. I know they technically profile as a team that's good against the pass, but
I think they're good against the pass not because they're necessarily great against the pass, but more because they slow the game down so much.
Yeah.
It's going to be a real question this week whose pace wins there, because either Carolina can slow the game down or the Colts are going to speed the game up. I would love to see Bryce Young play in a game where he has to keep up, rip the ball down the field. They don't slow the game down with the new play calling. I'm hoping that happens. I would like to see a little bit of that.
That'd be great for Adam Thielen. Yeah.
So I'm watching that game pretty closely this week, actually.
I think you're the only person on the planet who will be watching that game closely, but other than the fans of the respective teams, I guess, like I said, I'll go with trending because of the green and because of Gardner, but I guess I will turn this into a quick question to you as the resident Dynasty fanboy. Is he a sell given we know Richardson's coming back and Richardson does not hyper target receivers the same way that Gardner does?
No, I think he's a buy in Dynasty. I'd be looking to go get him now, preferably. I do think there's a range of outcomes where he is a consistent wide receiver 2-3 in his career. I think those players are heavily underrated. I mean, you're seeing that this year with Jacoby Myers. It was like no one wants, at the end of every year in Dynasty, no one wants a Jacoby Myers. Everybody wants to sell him for a 2nd-round pick, and then the next year he's wide receiver 20, and he's super useful. I really could see like that type of career for Josh Downs. Obviously, if Anthony Richardson, I expect him to improve as a passer. I don't think his rookie year is what we're just going to get. Coming off the shoulder surgery, he'll have a full another offseason. It doesn't worry me. I think he's still a good quarterback with a possible great future. And you just want to tie assets to that. I don't really care that he didn't hyper target him in his first couple games. I think they can grow together. Josh Downs would definitely be someone I'm targeting in Dynasty.
All right, good stuff. I love it.
All right, next player. We're going to go back to another running back here. Previous Dynasty running back 1, kind of the guy, out for a portion of this year off of a suspension, correct? Was Jonathan Taylor suspended? I'm like blanking.
I think no, he was on the pup
list.
Yeah.
All the trade stuff. My bad.
Yeah. Oh, it was bad. No, the trade stuff was bad. It was very ugly.
Yeah, so missed the first 4 games, comes back, signs a massive deal, wins the RB market. Since then, his first week back, obviously 3 points, 9 points, and then Cleveland and New Orleans, he's at 19 and 20 points.
Mm,
So he saw over 50% snap share for the first time in those 2 weeks, 50% against Cleveland, 61% against New Orleans. Obviously, we both know Zach Moss has been killing it. He's the RB4 on the year. Just a
insane,
ridiculous turn of events there.
insane.
He saw the first time under 50% snaps last week against New Orleans. Still finished as the RB14 because he got 66 yards and a touchdown. But you're starting to see the changing of the guard. What are your thoughts on Jonathan Taylor rest of season?
Yeah, apparently we just love our Colts on this show. Because I was like, oh, let me look at Taylor's game log, and I'm seeing that same slate. I'm seeing that same, a lot of green. The Bucks and the Titans are a little better against the run than it looks like they were against the pass. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, we're looking at in my league settings, we're looking at 4 points, 9 points, 20 points, and 11 points. RB38, RB24, RB7, RB21. So definitely trending in the right direction. Um, I'm inclined to. This is kind of similar to the Gibbs one, where it's like I don't think Moss is going away, and that's kind of the big issue. I think Taylor's ceiling is just capped. And it's tough because I want to say trending, but I'm just so afraid of that weekly, 10 rushes for seemingly 60 plus yards and a touchdown that Zach Moss is going to be vulturing every week. And we say vulturing in fantasy like it's a bad thing, but Zach Moss earned those touches and he continues to earn those touches. So I guess I won't plant my flag on either side, but if I had to pick a lean, I'd pick it's another same situation. It's like talent is going to win out. I feel like because I want to say ending, but then hearing those words come out of my mouth, it's like I want to catch them before they're out in the ether. Where this guy is, we know his talent. We know he's a top 5 talent in the NFL at the running back position. He might be top 3. So yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult conversation. But Zach, please help me make sense of it.
Yeah, I think I'm on the trending side.
How
Watching
can you
Zach
not be
Moss's snap
right?
shares go down, and listen, they have to justify breaking the RB market. They
Yeah,
did what no other team has done, and they re-signed a guy for multiple years on a fat contract. You can't continue to give Zach Moss the ball more than him. It's just you can't as an organization. Taylor's a better talent.
yeah.
This team is running a ton of plays, so it's going to be there around. The next 2 weeks should be really great for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Carolina's terrible matchup against running backs if your name is not Damian Pierce, and New England kind of the same thing. Then you got to buy, and then like you said, a brutal playoff stretch. I think maybe you can spin that into going and acquiring Jonathan Taylor if people are worried. I still think he has that top 10 upside pretty easily.
Yeah.
With a top 5 ceiling. I mean, he's catching the ball a lot with Gardner Minshew. 5 receptions, 3 receptions, then 1. He's a good pass catcher. This team's gonna be in a lot of games. Their defense isn't great. I'm not really worried. I think he finishes. I think he'll end this season from when he came back on as a top 10 running back, and I think that'll stay.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. As hard as like I said, it takes a gut check to look Zach Moss. Which who would have thought? I mean, dude, when watching him in Buffalo, I thought he was one of the worst talents I've ever seen ever.
Yep.
Let alone but he ended up being a stud. He's got a lot of talent. He's not particularly fast. He is a bit of a bruiser, but I think maybe
I
his
mean, he's ripped off some
he
wicked
has.
long runs this year.
I think his skill is he's finally using his vision that he was touted for when he came into the NFL, and also, um, those running backs that they say get better as the game goes on. I think Zach Moss is one of those players. He's kind of like a battering ram kind of player, like a war of attrition kind of player. Like they'll get tired before he will, sort of
He's kind
player.
of like the B version of Jonathan Taylor. They're
Yeah,
they're almost similar in the way that honestly Jonathan Taylor's like a better athlete,
it's
better
more
player, but
elusive. Yeah,
they kind of are similar.
yeah. I've grown to really respect Zach Moss's game. I actually had a party the day he was traded, so
I remember
L for
we were
me, I
both
guess.
thrilled about it.
Yeah, honestly, L for me. I mean,
And now Buffalo looks like they could use this version of Zach
yeah,
Moss running
right.
behind that on that team right now.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. You know, who would have thought we would, you know, who would have thought Naheem Hines would get hit by a jet ski and miss the season? Life's weird.
That's
NFL's
crazy. I
weird.
forgot about that. All right, well
Tragic.
let's move to Buffalo then. And I'll let you start on this one. Dalton
Cheers.
Kincaid with
Party time.
yeah, with the tight end injuries there. With why am I forgetting the other tight end's name?
Dawson Knox.
He's already out of my brain. That's how much I love
Yeah,
Dalton Kincaid.
I
I
know.
forgot about him already.
I know. I'm
Um,
proud to see you here, man. You welcome. I've been
yeah,
waiting for you.
listen,
I've got the
you
streamers. I got the
at the beginning of the year, didn't think Dalton Kincaid was going to be a top tight end, and I looked like a genius for the first couple weeks, and
you did.
because listen, Dawson, well, not a genius. Kincaid was still decently okay.
Decently okay is a good way to put it.
No, he was bad. Not a single game over 7 points. Take it back. But an
Yeah.
injury to Dawson Knox changes all because that was my holdup. They were playing 50-50. I don't think Knox was coming off of field for a team that needed his blocking capabilities. But Knox is gone now. He's going to be out for at least, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
Since he's been gone, Kincaid took on a 61% snap share and then an 84% snap share against Tampa Bay, who is pretty decent against tight ends. Doesn't allow a lot of touchdowns. He snagged one. And coming up, he's got Cincinnati, Denver, Jets, Philly, all bottom tier against tight ends. What are your thoughts on Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we all know my answer to this. Like, I think the only question is just how emphatically am I gonna make this point? But obviously, it's a trend. Um, I've been saying that he had the potential to fill in that missing Cole Beasley role for the Bills, and my goodness, has it seemed like he's turned that corner. He's recognizing those soft spots in the zone. He's sitting down comfortably where he knows Josh Allen can get him the ball. He's presenting himself in a way that is so beautiful. If you watch the tape, if you watch the all 22 on his touchdown reception against Tampa, it's a scramble drill. And he identifies that Josh Allen is in trouble and he maneuvers his way through a field of Buccaneers and puts himself in position to catch the ball. And what I'm hearing the most love in Kincaid with is outside of all his hands, which he's caught, I think 25 of 27 targets on the year or something absurd like that. His catch percentage is stupid. He's got this insane smoothness to his both his route running and his after the catch where it's so mechanical it doesn't look like anything's stopping. Like he'll reach back for the ball and he's not focused on the ball, but he's still moving and it's so fluid. He's almost like if you took Shady McCoy's fluidity and put it in a tall white dude, like that's Dalton Kincaid. It's really something special to watch. So I'm hammering the Kincaid hype train. I've been the conductor. I got my hat. I got my train. What do they call those things? I got my whistle, and I'm just full steam ahead on Dalton Kincaid for me.
Oh, yeah, I mean, listen. So last week, Dalton Kincaid ran a route on 63% of dropbacks while playing 61% of snaps. That was week 7. Week 8, he ran a route on 85% of dropbacks while playing 84% of snaps without Knox. I mean,
Sheesh.
listen, he's out there all the time. They're getting him engaged. Buffalo, I mean, we've talked about this so many times. They desperately needed a number 2 option in that passing game other than Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis had a great game last week. He will continue to have those every once in a while.
Yeah.
He is a boom bust deep threat,
Yeah.
but they need someone else. I think Kincaid can be that guy. I'm going to give you 3 names. I got Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Sam Laporta. End of list. Only 3 names I could think of that I want over Dalton Kincaid rest of
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
He's probably going to slot in at 4 for me there.
I like it.
You can throw TJ Hawkinson in that same area, but with Kirk out, I don't know
Yeah.
which one of those two will have a
Goddard
better
might
rest of the
be
season.
just a little lower, similar.
Goddard's lower to me. I don't want him over either of those 2 guys.
Yeah.
It's a toss-up between Hawkinson and Kincaid. I want to see how the Vikings react without Kirk Cousins. But those are the only 3 tight ends I would definitely want over Kincaid for the rest of the season.
Are you
So,
rest of
wheels up.
season locking in Kincaid over Kittle?
Yep, easily. Don't
Okay,
I
cool.
wouldn't even sweat if someone offered me Kincaid for Kittle. I would accept that
Okay.
without even blinking.
So let's say theoretically somebody had both in a dynasty league. Theoretically, like except my friend or
Are
something.
they your only two tight ends?
Yes. The
I'm holding.
problem
I'm just
is
keeping it.
you would keep Kincaid in the lineup over Kittle weekly.
Yes. Yeah.
The problem is this friend happens to be a Bills fan, and they also happen to have Stephon Diggs in their lineup and
Doesn't
Josh
bother me.
Allen. Okay,
Doesn't
heard.
bother me.
And James
Listen,
Cook and Gabe Davis. No, I'm just kidding.
you got to look at it respectively, and I will always call you a Bills homer and think you are
100%.
biased in a lot of your takes, and sometimes it happens. This one, I don't think you're there.
Yeah.
I would be happy to start Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, and whatever Lions running back you want every single week.
Yeah,
I would
and
do that.
Laporta. Yeah.
Yeah, and Laporta. If I have
Yeah.
all of them, I'm not shying away.
Yeah,
Great
because you just trust
offenses.
the offense. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that doesn't bother me with Kincaid or Diggs. Both of them can have good weeks with that offense. There's enough yards to go around
Yeah, yeah.
with Josh Allen, and they're all great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree,
up
man.
with Kincaid.
I'm so stoked, man. And I might get a jersey. That's the next conversation for me. And I'll also say, I always ask you to point out which takes I'm biased in, and you never can. You just seem to think that I am. I think I'm not.
No, you have your shares.
There was one player that I was lower than consensus on coming into the season on the Bills, and it was Damian Harrison. Prior to the injury, he wasn't exactly setting the world on fire. Everybody else has performed at or better than their ADP.
I think James Cook is starting to fallen off a little bit, at least fantasy production wise.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually taken him out of a couple lineups just based on a bit of volatility that I'm not loving.
And listen, barring injury, I do think you were too high on Kincaid coming into the year. He was hurting your teams for the first couple weeks, and we're bailed out here. So
I don't know, man.
We're none for the worse.
You're right. I will say I was pretty confident that I think we talked a lot about how I felt like he would be a second half of the year player. But regardless, it was slower than I wanted it to be. And also the usage was infuriating early in the season, bro. The tight end flat routes just had to go.
Yeah,
I was so
we
done with
talked
that.
about Deontay Hardy being just a non-factor.
Not quite a difference maker like I hoped. Yeah.
And who was even the other one? Trent
Sherfield.
Trent Sherfield. Haven't even heard his name come up once.
Shocking.
So there are some takes that I do think you can be a little. You're just deep in the Bills history, man. That's it.
Love him.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good. I feel like we came to a happy medium here. We can. What's next?
All right, let's actually go ahead and move on to our next segment here. We're going to skip the last player because I imagine he will come up at some point.
Oh yes, sir.
And we're going to go a little buy low, sell high. Just some candidates that we're talking trades because it's that time of the year. You're halfway through the season. A lot of people ride their teams out. See, like, hey, maybe I'm 1-3, but I like my team. I'm not trading anybody. And then you go 2-5, 2-6, and all of a sudden you got to make some moves. I'm in that boat currently. I'm dropping out of the playoff conversation as we speak, so it's time to make some moves, which means you got to make some trades. And also, if you're in fantasy football leagues, stay active. Please make some trades. Even if you're just declining offers, decline the offer. Do something.
Yeah, please. You're so right, dude. And it's weird because, like, bro, it's a lot more frequent in Dino that I find people are active traders. Most of my redraft leagues are like, if there's a trade, it's like news. It's like the group chats text, everybody's like, yo, there's a trade. It's like, I don't like that. I sent out like 8 offers last night because I'm like, let's just ignite the league, But you're so right.
Killer.
Yeah, it's brutal. So Zach, why don't you start us off at the quarterback position? Who you like to buy low, sell high on?
Can we just take a second and talk about how bad the quarterback position is this year?
It's atrocious. It's ugly.
Normally, it's kind of like if you don't have an elite guy, even then don't draft him, and then stream quarterbacks. That's terrible this year.
It's not fun.
Kirk's gone. Rodgers was gone. You basically have Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, and I'm going to throw Justin Herbert in there because for fantasy purposes, he has been lights out this year. Really, great. Outside of those guys, are you happy with Tua every week? When his boom weeks, he's been great. He's had 20 plus weeks. is at the floor weeks, you know? You're not always thrilled with him. And then really behind him, Joe Burrow, I'll take him now that he's healthy,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ridiculously. But
He
you're
could
not
get
happy
locked in.
really with anybody outside of that. So
No,
it's
you're
it's
right.
tough. This is a tough conversation to have here because the quarterbacks are just slim pickings. If you have an elite quarterback, you're probably not moving on from them.
Yeah,
But let's grab a little conversation for trades here. If you can make it happen, Joe Burrow would be the one for me.
the buy low.
It's tough because I feel like that kind of shut last week.
Yeah,
He went off
he was so
and
good.
just had one of the most dominant weeks of a quarterback this year.
Yeah, he was special.
I'm buying into that rest of season. I think he's back. He's going to be what he is, which is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
If you're gonna buy, wait until after this week because the Bills have been pretty good against quarterbacks. I'm just.
I I don't think it's going to matter. I think
You're
those
right.
two together are going to be a
He beat up on the
shootout.
49ers. You're right actually.
I would not be waiting. I think there's a good chance this Sunday night game goes into a shootout.
Yeah, I think so too. Unfortunately,
It's budding into a kind of an AFC rivalry here.
it is.
And
Sucks.
I would not be shocked if he goes for 303. Either one of those quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh Allen's got that shoulder injury. I hope he's all right.
Yeah, I think he will
but
be. He said if
I'm
there was a
buying Joe
game
Burrow.
yesterday, he would have played. Yeah, I would too.
If I've got Tua, maybe I'm shipping him off for Joe Burrow. Make a move if you can to get him. I do think rest of the season he's going to be just locked in, loaded, top 5, top 3 quarterback.
I love it, man. I think it's a good buy low. I'm gonna go a little lower for my buy low. I'm gonna. I'm not exactly scraping the bottom of the barrel, more like the side of the barrel, like the upper side of the barrel. This person, he's a very, very talented player, and in Dynasty, it would be a lot harder to get him because he's so young and he's so gifted. But CJ Stroud in his last 3 games has really crashed back down to earth very quietly. Hasn't been a huge storyline, but the early season, he started out the year QB 22, 13, 12, and 10 in the first 4 weeks of the season. He had a 27 and a 28 and a 31-point game in 3 straight weeks. But then he kind of tailed off a little bit, crashed back down to earth, QB 17, QB 12, bye week, QB 23. So in a week where his highest game in the last 4 games was QB 12, and it was with a 17-point outing, this might be an opportunity to go out and grab CJ Stroud. And if you get him now, you might, the playoffs get dicey, but you're looking at Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Arizona, Jacksonville, Denver. 4 out of those 5 teams are in the bottom tier against quarterbacks. So personally, I actually was looking at Stroud as a sell high initially because I feel like his name still carries a little bit of weight. And in Dynasty, I mean, I wouldn't sell anyway because having a QB, a potential QB1 for years is just not something you should part with. But that being said, when I did the research, his numbers of late have looked uglier than I thought, and his schedule upcoming looks better than I thought. So he turned into a buy for me just upon doing my research.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I think he's a bit more of a dynasty buy for me than a redraft buy. Even at his peak this season for redraft, he hasn't really cracked that top 12.
Yeah, back end
I
QB
want
one.
I want my quarterback to be able to be top 5
Yeah.
at some point in time. That's been my biggest frustration with Trevor Lawrence. He's Mr. 15 points right now.
That's
Every
tough.
week he gets 15 points. It's not hurting me, but it's not winning me any games.
He'll probably still
He's
be a
just-
QB1 on the year. It's just not going to
Yeah,
look good.
just by getting 15 points every week, he'll be
Yeah.
a QB1.
Philip Rivers used to do that. That used to be how he made his hay.
And it is frustrating. I do worry a little bit about that with CJ Stroud. He hasn't really flashed the huge ceiling yet. It could be in store. Very well think it is with his talent. But I'm a little more in on Dynasty. I don't really have a trade away quarterback for you. Maybe Sam Howell, but I do think he can keep up kind of the pace he's on. Maybe not top 8 quarterback, but they're going to be throwing the ball a ton. But the other 2 quarterbacks I think I would be heavily targeting if you need is Dak Prescott. I think is a good bet to be a late season riser.
Hell yeah.
They have had such a weird run so far of the year of games where they're either up by 40 or they're down by like 20 in a slugfest.
Yeah.
And they have just one of the easiest schedules for quarterbacks coming up. There's going to be a lot of barn burners. They should be able to have some real games. I think he will be just a great player rest of season. And then after that, I'm going to kind of go in the same boat here. This one's going to be dirty, dog. If someone's dropped Deshaun Watson, he might be worth picking
I
up.
just can't do it.
I
We've
do
seen too
think
much at this point for me.
we've seen a lot so far in the year, but I
And
feel
it's
like it's
what
been a
I
little misleading.
but I
I
feel
think
like
it's
it's what
been a
we saw
little.
last year. I feel like I feel like he's cooked. I feel like he sucks.
I'm not ready to throw in the towel. I want to. Don't you worry. I will be waiting to throw in the towel.
He's
But
been
we saw him for 3 healthy weeks, and he was
Yeah.
QB5, QB27, QB10. When you're talking just fantasy, let's put aside whether he looked good or not through these games. For fantasy, that's a quarterback you want to have on your team against
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee, who are all solid against quarterbacks. If he comes back healthy off of the shoulder injury, which is important, it's been weird.
Yeah.
And he looked bad when he came back. He should
Super
not
weird.
have played that game. Weird vibes.
Yeah.
But this week he's got Arizona. If he does play, I don't think he will. And then next week he's got Baltimore. Brutal. I don't want any part of either of those games, really. But then you've got Pittsburgh, Denver, Rams, Jacksonville, Chicago, Houston to ride you into the playoffs. Every single one of those teams is bottom half schedule adjusted against quarterbacks. That's a cakewalk. He doesn't have Nick Chubb to rely on anymore. They are throwing the ball more. We've seen PJ Walker kind of sling it around. He's got good options. And you might be able to just pick him up. He's got the rushing floor too. I do think, listen, at the beginning of the season, he was a top 10 quarterback twice of the 3 games, even when he looked bad. I think it's partial, just like a visual bias of we do not like Deshaun Watson.
It's
We
definitely
don't want
possible.
him to succeed.
Yeah.
But if you are in the bear, like you lost Kirk Cousins this last week, and the best quarterback on your waivers is Mac Jones, or you can go get a hurt Deshaun Watson and wait 2 weeks, I'm doing that. I'm not gonna ride Mac Jones or Derek Carr the rest of my season if I can take the shot at someone who can finish as a top 5 quarterback each week.
You know I'm all in on the Derek Carr side of that, but I digress. I don't hate it. I don't hate the process. I mean, your process is sound. My money's just elsewhere. If I had to sell a high quarterback, it would be Jordan Love. I don't care if his schedule is all green against quarterbacks. I think that the Packers are cooked. They look atrocious, and he always puts up good fantasy numbers in those games. But the chickens will come home to roost, in my opinion, when it comes to Jordan Love. QB3, QB16, QB6, QB12, 1 QB24, QB12, QB18. That is a guy you can sell. That is 100% a guy you can convince your league mate who doesn't watch the games that Jordan Love is this great quarterback, and then get him the hell off your team. I have him in Dynasty. I know my Dynasty league mates are 100% listening to this podcast, so this is unfortunate, but I might be sending out some Jordan Love trade offers tonight.
Just send it out tonight before the show goes up.
Yeah,
so that
that's
they
a good
can listen to
idea.
it
I have
after
a
the
very
trade.
small window of time, but I'm doing it. I will do it.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. After the first 3 weeks of the season, I remember we talked about Jordan Love, and you were like, "Hey, maybe it's happening. Maybe
I
he's the
thought it
guy."
was.
And I was not there because I
No.
was trusting. I was trusting my eyes to tell me that he was a bad quarterback.
Yeah, you were, and you were right, honestly. And you told me that prior to the season, and I felt like a victory lap was incoming, and I feel like we might have flipped trajectories here. Now, the Packers just look objectively bad. Like they look bad.
Yeah, and I do think there's been rumblings about them moving on from Jordan Love after this year, and I'm happy they didn't sign him to a long-term extension because I think that's the right move is
That was
to
smart.
move on.
That was shrewd
Let's move
of
to the
them.
running back position, the most
Yes, sir.
important position in all of fantasy sports because there aren't enough of them. So one buy, one sell. What you got for me?
Well, it's a little tougher at the running back position because I feel like I said, when we talk sell high, there has to be a high, right? So I could go with the lowest hanging fruit of all time, but how I was going to say Zach Moss, but how can you really package Zach Moss right now? Who's buying? So I don't really feel like there's much there. If you could sell somebody on the promise that he had a season long role, so be it. But as opposed to my traditional earlier of the day bottom of the barrel, I think the flip side of bottom of the barrel when you're going sell is the top of the barrel, right? Like selling the guy you don't want to sell, selling the guy who you're like, no, please let me keep him. Because
The
I sold
creme de la
high,
creme of the barrel.
literally the peak barrel. And I've made a point on the show that I had to sell the RB1 in Dynasty or in fantasy, Raheem Mostert. And I hated it. I'm not going to say it looks like a good decision because he's
It
still
looked
good.
great for a second, and then it looked bad right after.
I mean, I'm still really happy that I have the draft picks that I have, and I think his value was higher then, prior to Achan's breakout and Jeff Wilson coming back. But I'm gonna make another really really hard call, and I'm gonna say that you should sell high on DeAndre Swift. And I hate it because he's so talented and he's on my dynasty team and he's really good and he's a great player. But Philly, I don't know if this same thing is happening to you, but the eye test does not give me the same comfort that the numbers do. And I think that matters. And I think we're looking at a similar situation, not in stature or quality, but we're looking at sort of a Jordan Love situation where I think the numbers are lying a little bit. And DeAndre Swift has cooled off from that, 200-yard game that he had early in the season. We're looking at RB 13, 11, 11, 13, 25, 15. So the numbers are getting higher as we're going, which we don't want, or I guess lower technically if we're going by rankings. He's got Dallas bye week, Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, Seattle. Prior to an incredible stretch in the playoffs of Giants and Cardinals at week 16 and 17. So if you hold the bag, you will be rewarded probably at the end of the season, but you're holding strong through a long and painful matchup of red teams and teams that are good against the run, or games that profile as shootouts that probably won't be favorable to the DeAndre Swift game script, the game Swift, if you will. That was horrible. I apologize. So yeah, I would sell high on DeAndre Swift. Yeah, bad.
It's tough. He's the RB5 on the year, which is almost shocking information. He's just been consistent, never really less than 10 points. I would have a hard time selling him myself. It's a tough call. I mean, I appreciate you going with your gut.
Sucks.
I think I'll stand on the other side. Philly's O-line is just so good that I'm not really worried about the matchups, and that playoff stretch kind of has league winner written on it. Which is a term I hate using, by the way, because I don't know if you saw my tweet out that we should never use that term until the last 3 weeks of the season, because they're not a league winner if they're great for 12 weeks and then never do anything again.
That's when your league is won.
You're not winning the league.
Yeah, I totally get it. Because Cordero Patterson was a league winner that one year, but then he fizzled out in the playoffs and sent everybody home.
The league. Yeah. I want that player who's got a 3-game dominant stretch at the end. And that's kind of what I see with Swift is like, if you're already 7-1 and 6-1, which, or sorry, why did I say 6-1? 7-1, 6-2. You might be because you have Swift on your roster. I'm probably just holding, even if it's going to be kind of murky in those weeks, if you have a good shot at the playoffs already, because you might get that ticket for those last 3 games. But if you are where I'm at, where it's like 2-5, 3 and I can't math today. 2-6, 3-5. I mind it less. I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it then.
Yeah, gotta liquidate it at some point.
All right. Well, what's your trade for then? Who are you looking? If you're moving Swift, you got to move him for somebody. You're trying to upgrade. What are you looking at?
Yeah. I mean, you teased a name. Oh no, I don't remember. Was the name you teased? We're gonna expose the bathrobe here. That's actually an Australian slang that I learned from Adrian Revito. We're gonna expose the bathrobe here. Was your teaser name Jonathan Taylor or was it Breece Hall?
Breece Hall. But
okay, then I won't talk about Breece Hall.
Go ahead and take whoever you want.
No, please. I just rambled on about DeAndre Swift. I will pivot because I also think there's another buy, and I think this is a buy that's going to be easier. And I've been saying this all year because I'm so in on the talent and I'm so in on the role. But buy Saquon Barkley, people. I understand that the Giants are so icky and gross and disgusting, and it hasn't looked the best. But look, in his games, he has finished no lower than the RB32 in that week 1 debacle against the Cowboys. We're looking at RB5, RB17, RB9, and RB12. His schedule is not overwhelmingly favorable, so that might be the one thing. That might be why you could get him because you might be able to say, hey, get out from under Saquon. So I'm saying buy low because I think the promise of Saquon not being an RB1 rest of the season is there. And you could probably, in my opinion, swindle somebody because I think he's matchup proof. I really do. I believe it. He look at his game log. No lower than RB32 in a game that was never competitive. 26 points, 13 points, 19 points, 17 points. I personally think Saquon Barkley, I think his talent is always going to win out. And I think the Giants have no other way to beat you. I think they've proven to be almost unwatchable and like they don't look like a competing NFL team right now. And I think that really helps the case given that I know Dimes is coming back, which unfortunately some of Saquon's worst weeks were with Dimes. He did have an RB5 game with Dimes in at QB, but during that 3-game stretch, it was all Tyrod. But personally, I'm not afraid of the red and orange on the matchup slate. I think Saquon is. I think he's gonna win leagues.
Personally, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to tell you not to go get Saquon, but I'll take Swift over Saquon for the rest of this year. I do think I'd rather have Swift on my team, whether it be that playoff stretch. Saquon's matchups coming up are fine, and after his bye, you got Green Bay, and you got your playoff stretches. New Orleans, 4th best against the run, Philly, the best against the run, and the Rams, who are 7th best against the run. That worries me, and at this point in the year, I'm looking for the playoffs, so I prefer Swift.
Yeah.
But I do think if you can move someone like Mixon for Barkley, I'm in on that. James Cook, sell him for someone for Barkley.
Yeah.
Great. You're making good moves here. I
Part
do
of
think
it is
he's
just,
still going to be a back end one for the year.
It's just a value proposition, right? It's not just in a vacuum who we prefer. It's also like, can we capitalize on that perceived value of Swift and get more than if we just, or can we go out and get Saquon for less? It's like, it's all about positioning here. This isn't, it is definitely, like I said, I am going for bold ones. I'm not going to tell you to go buy Breece Hall, even though I wanted to, because Zach is going to, because he's so great. Breece Hall would probably have been the slam dunk, but I like getting weird. I like getting deeper.
No, I don't mind it. And I think, I don't know if Saquon Barkley is necessarily a deep cut, but
yeah, I know, right?
I do appreciate
feels like
that sentiment.
It feels like
it does a little bit. He's been banged up. That Giants team's been bad. I'll move through mine pretty quick here. I have a couple I want to highlight. First, I'm going to start with the trade away, which for me is Jahmyr Gibbs. And take this with a grain of salt because don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not trying to get rid of Jahmyr Gibbs. I want to get rid of Jahmyr Gibbs for a workhorse back. If you can sell he's the RB1 of the last 2 weeks. He's looking dominant. He's looking like that top 12 pick. I don't think he's getting 30 touches a game for the rest of the season. They have a beautiful strength of schedule for the end of the year, too. I mean, the Lions, they're facing bottom tier run defense all the way up to week 16. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be good. He is going to be good for the rest of the year. Don't hear what I'm not saying there. But if you can move Gibbs plus maybe someone who needs a wide receiver, add Gibbs in a wide receiver 2-3, go get Christian McCaffrey. Go get Austin Eckler. Go get Breece Hall. Those are 3 guys that I would rather have on my team than Jahmyr Gibbs for the rest of the season, who also have just phenomenal matchups from here to the end of the year. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is the RB1. I want him. Eckler, cakewalk of a schedule. Breece Hall is just on path to be a ridiculous tear. Those are 3 guys that are guaranteed, no matter the game script, you're up, they're running the ball. You're down, they're receiving the ball. I think they'll be a little less volatile than Jahmyr Gibbs with the same amount of ceiling. If you can make a move like that this week, I'm in. I would like to sell Jahmyr Gibbs for something like that. The list probably ends at those guys, though. I want a top 5. Travis Etienne would probably be another name I'd throw into that book, too.
Yeah.
That would be the type of move when I say sell Jahmyr Gibbs. That's like what I mean by a sell high. If you can turn him into a titan at the position of
Top
Christian
3 player,
McCaffrey,
yeah.
I'm interested in doing that.
Yeah, I like it. And I hate it because I love Gibbs, but I like it because your process is sound. And again, value proposition. It's all about moving up the board, man. And the name I thought of was Eckler, and I almost don't think you need to throw anything in. I almost don't think you need
You could probably
sweetener.
get him 1 for 1.
I think you could
It'd probably be pretty easy. You might even be able to
get Eckler
finagle a
plus.
decent upgrade depending
Yeah,
on the Eckler manager and league you're in.
yeah.
So that's my one big sell high. He's the only name that really flashed out at me that I was like, if I can make this move, I'm making this move.
Yeah, and tell us why we should buy Brees, and then we'll do receivers quick, and then we'll wrap this sucker up.
With some, yep. Yeah, Brees Hall. I mean, since he's come back from the first 4 games, he's been just absolutely dominant. They clearly don't care about Dalvin Cook. He got 2 touches last week, even after the complaints.
Tough.
His next 3 matchups are beautiful for running backs, and then it's just kind of middle of the pack. Really, this team just needs to rely on him. He's an excellent running back. I think he can finish top 5 in the year. He gets it done in the air, as you've seen. He gets it done on the ground. There are very few running backs that are true workhorses, and they're proving to make Brees Hall one of them. So I think he got the huge ceiling rest of the year. I'm going to do 2 quick buy lows to just throw on my roster that aren't those massive guys. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, sure, whatever. But a true buy low here, I think Jerome Ford is a good candidate.
Love that.
He's been a little banged up. You know, we've seen Kareem Hunt come in, take like 4 touchdowns in straight couple weeks. But I think we saw that Jerome Ford was the better running back when he was healthy. They featured him, and the Browns have a really nice schedule coming up for running backs, especially in the playoffs too. I think he will get back involved as he gets healthier, and I think you can buy him for very, very cheap on the list there. So I do like buying
Jerome Ford.
Jerome Ford. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do like
I
buying
like it.
Jerome Ford at this point if you need it. So
Yeah,
I'm in there.
I will give you my receivers quick. I got to buy low on T. Higgins. He's been atrocious and scary, and it's not pretty at all if you look at what he's done this year. But Burrow's back. The streets are saying Higgins is back. He finally cracked the top 42 of wide receivers last week, which is nauseating to even think about because a lot of people spent 2nd and 3rd round picks on him. Not us, and we told you not to. But that being said, this is your buy opportunity. He has a couple of tough matchups: Buffalo, Houston, Baltimore. Before he opens up the skies, the heavens are parting for a stretch of weeks 12 through 16 of Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Vikings, and Steelers before championship weekend against the Chiefs, which profiles to be a shootout regardless of how good they are against receivers right now. So that's my buy low. And then if I had to sell high, I hate saying this, I don't want to say it, but I'd probably package Jacoby Myers' amazing early stretch of the season and sell him. I don't think Aiden O'Connell's going to support 2 wide receivers. And Devontae Adams is absolutely going to get his targets. So I think Jacoby is probably a sell, unfortunately. As much as I love what he's done this year, I've been very in on him. I think that ship is probably sailing.
Yeah, I have the same concerns with Myers. So I'm in there. Buy lows for me, I guess. I don't know if you can anymore. But CeeDee Lamb would be the screaming one for me if you're gonna try and move for an elite guy.
Yeah, it'd be tough right now after that
Tough
game.
now.
Might have to wait for a bad game. Yeah, wait for a bad game. Yeah.
But if you can move let's say like a Keenan Allen in a trade for him, or maybe like a Chris Olave who's been underperforming, Jalen Waddle. I don't know. Move something.
Olave scares me.
I think.
Is that a returning around?
I've still got confidence in Olave. I'm not panicking yet.
Okay.
I think CeeDee Lamb is a top 3 wide receiver the rest of the season. He should just be on a tear. And then Brandon Ayuk. I don't think he's being seen as a wide receiver 1 necessarily for fantasy. I think he can still finish as that and has a cakewalk of a schedule moving forward, and they need him to succeed. So I'd be looking to buy both of those guys on that. Obviously, those are 2 kind of top of the barrel guys, but nonetheless. And then sell high. For me, it's a tough category, man, because there's not a lot of people you want to sell high.
I know. If they're high for a reason. I get it. It's tough.
But I do think I'm probably moving away from DeAndre Hopkins after this week. I don't necessarily have the full faith in Will Levis that people do. So I don't mind.
We got to hope for a
shipping him
good
off.
game tonight. The streets are going to get this after the game. So if DeAndre has a great game tonight, then you guys know what to do. Start
Yeah, see
your
if you
offers
can get
this
something
weekend.
for him.
If he has a bad game tonight, maybe hold the bag until another good one, because they'll come. The spike weeks will come. Levis is that kind of player. He's extremely gunslinger-esque. But Zach, we did it. Another day in the
We did
coffee
it.
shop, man. How you
No
feel?
tight ends today. We'll get some buy lows on tight ends next
Hell
week.
yeah.
I feel good, man. Happy to be here with you and excited for some Thursday night football tonight. So
Yeah,
appreciate you
same,
having me
man.
here, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. This has been phenomenal, bro. I really appreciate you as always. Thank you for everybody who listened. Congrats to the Rangers on winning the World Series. This is a sports podcast, but we don't really care about baseball. I'm so sorry if you do. Congrats to the Rangers. And yeah, basketball's been cool. Looking forward to get into some more NBA content, hopefully next week.
Let's do it. Follow
Let's
us
get
on
it.
YouTube, socials, both of us there. You can find our podcast anywhere you listen to it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.